Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily live show from 8:30 to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments in the live feed. And if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so please do engage with it. And at the end, I'll reveal the results. Right, so good morning again. My name is Sean Goldsmith. I'm an international franchising expert, and I'm very pleased to say that just in the last few days, we've finalized the merger, and we now have a new company called Grow Global. And what we do is we do exactly what it says on the tin. We help small businesses become big businesses, and big businesses become bigger businesses through the medium of franchising. We work all over the world, from Germany, China, South Africa, and of course here in Britain, to help companies create the structures that they need in order to create a successful franchise. But today, I'm going to be talking to you about franchising with a social impact. And it's something that's very, very close to my heart. So very few people in the world are actually focusing on this at the moment. And I'm very pleased to say that we've got two big initiatives running at the moment. The first one is called Franchise Britain, and the other one is called Franchising for Africa. Now, I'm not here to kind of plug them. What I am here to do is to talk to you about how franchising can actually be used as a massive force for good to turn around communities, whether they are underrepresented or, or in the case of Africa, where really they just need help to be able to sort of get out of poverty. So franchising is, as a business structure, is genius. It is genius, especially when rolled out in the correct way. So we know already from places like the US and Britain and a number of other countries in the world that franchising is fairly prolific. The majority of people, and I'm betting that quite a few of you that are listening to this at the moment don't fully understand what franchising is, but the majority of people consider it something to do with McDonald's or KFC or the big food businesses, which is absolutely right. And I've got to say, if there was ever a business to kind of admire in terms of their track record with animal welfare and charitable giving, McDonald's is actually a pretty impressive company. But today I'm going to be speaking about something a lot smaller, right? And we're talking about the social impact franchising. So about 20 years ago, a country called Malaysia, the government decided that they were going to try and turn around the fortunes of the local Malays. So it was an underrepresented community. It was a community that was really struggling, was impoverished, and didn't really seem as if very much of the initiatives were working in Malaysia at that time. So what they did is they turned to franchising as a concept, right, to try and alleviate the poverty and give people opportunities. So they went around the world and they started looking for small franchises, right? So when I say small franchises, franchising is very vast in terms of its scope. They started looking for domestic cleaning franchises, and they started looking for lawn cutting franchises. They started looking for window cleaning franchises. They looked for small food concepts, right? Things that work in a tiny little environment. And they went out across the world and they started buying up franchises on behalf of the Malaysian government. So I know this because at one stage I was helping 10 franchise brands go over to Malaysia through this scheme. Now, we actually got these guys coming to the Franchising for Africa sort of conference. What it did in Malaysia was it fundamentally turned around, the fortunes of a whole segment of people, right? The Malays, and it helped people because of the structure, because of the step-by-step business-in-a-box nature of franchising. It helped people very, very simply open up businesses and have the support. All the support mechanisms, all of the backing that they needed in order to be able to run a successful small business. And it's been a resounding success. Now, what we're doing in Africa is exactly the same thing. So the Franchising for Africa conference is all about taking the fight to poverty through the medium of franchising. So we are doing exactly the same thing. We have been speaking to franchisers from around the world. And what we are doing is we're taking these small concepts. And if you understand Africa, the one thing that you'll understand is that, when you enable one person, what you're actually doing is you're enabling a family and you're enabling a community. People are very, very giving out there. So we are specifically targeting, you know, the sort of tribal areas, going out there and helping especially the ladies, you know, start their little franchise businesses, because it does filter through to the community. So, you know, and which is an absolutely beautiful thing. So, you know, in terms of why it works and why franchising works in the normal sort of commercial context of day to day, whether you're in Britain or if you're, you know, in Malaysia, Australia, China, Japan, any of these places, the fundamental structure of franchising is all about the support mechanism, right? That is the reason why in the UK, 93.7% of small businesses that are franchise businesses are not only still in business, but they are profitable after 3 years, which is in stark contrast to what I call a DIY business, right? When you go out there and you are DIYing it. And I keep saying to a lot of the people that I work with in the mastermind group that I have, etc., that, you know, the funny thing about franchising and the misunderstanding of franchising of what it is if you were to start your own business, you would go out there and you might be on something called Clubhouse, which has become the favorite thing at the moment, or wherever you go to your networking events, and there will be experts telling you what you must do when you start your small business is you must go and get yourself a mentor. You must go and get yourself a coach. You must go and find yourself an expert marketing company. You must go and do this and you must go and do that, right? The funny thing is that still as a small business, when you are looking for your mentor, when you are looking for your coach, when you are looking for this expert marketing company, you don't know what you don't know yet, right? So that mentor may be fundamentally incorrect for your business. They may have been absolutely incredible in building a construction business, but they might not know anything about dog walking and the fundamental basics of the companies and the customers of dog walking. So there's a disconnect there. When you work with franchising, what happens is all of those people come fully packaged and experienced in your particular field. So if you were to start a dog walking franchise, using that example again, what you have is you have an expert mentor in dog walking. You have an expert coach in dog walking. You have a marketing company who understands your clients and your customers, etc. So we're taking that principle, right, that support structure, and we're taking that to go and take the fight to poverty. Franchise Britain is slightly different. Franchise Britain, what we've decided to do is we launched the largest social initiative in the industry. Well, largest one that's ever been attempted. We are looking to give away over 200 franchise units to people here in Britain that have, through no fault of their own, been affected by COVID-19. So, you know, some wonderful and horrendous stories. You know, people, as an example, single mother of 3 that we've been speaking to. You know, through no fault of her own, her business folded because she was focused on homeschooling. You know, so these are the kind of people that we are going to be helping as a community to get back on their feet through the medium of franchising, with all of the supports and the structure, etc., that they need in order to be able to, you know, turn their lives around and feed their kids again. You know, so if you have any questions about sort of social franchising or franchising in general, you know, please feel free to put it into the live stream at the moment. More than happy to answer both on and offline. So yeah, so fundamentally, when you are looking at the franchising model, if you are sitting there at the moment and you might be an accountant, you might be somebody who mows lawns, you know, you might be that chap that we spoke to the other day who's over in the Netherlands and he does chocolate dipped strawberries. You know, what franchising does is it allows both you as the business owner as well as those franchisees, right, to have a system and a process of support and backup, you know, supply chain methodologies, etc., which take away a lot of the responsibility that you as a business owner would have yourself to figure out, right? It takes away that element of it, and it lets you just focus on the thing that's the most important, and that is serve your customers and serve them well and go and get more customers, right? So if you can do those two things, safe in the knowledge that all of the other processes, you know, are in place, then, you know, fundamentally you're going to have a great business. But anyway, before I waffle on too long, we got some great questions in again. Mailies from Instagram direct messaging. Good morning, Sean. Are there any franchise options available in the e-commerce industry? That is an interesting one. I'm sure there are. I can't think of one off the top of my head at the moment. only because the e-commerce industry is already something that is global, right? So it is already something that is, can reach people all over the world. I suppose you could probably look at, things like the multi-level marketing kind of companies, which are quite similar, where they have a need to have people on the ground, as well as this online presence. But other than that, I guess the closest thing that you could come to is magazine franchises, because predominantly they are promoting themselves off the websites and the online sort of offering. But again, the on the ground relationships, the need to have somebody in the villages, in the towns, kind of meeting and shaking hands, and well, not recently, but doing that kind of thing is quite big. I'll have a think about that, and if I can, I will try and get back to you through the QuickBooks team. But yeah, great question, thank you. It's actually stretched my mind there. Bailey from Instagram DM. Morning, Sean. What, according to you, are the top 2 to 3 ways of raising funds for buying a franchise? Any tips on how I can make my pitch or application foolproof? Well, look, so buying a franchise, here's the good news. You've got a franchisor who also wants to help you raise the finance, right? So, before COVID, it was actually a very simple process. When we were helping people into franchising, one of the last things that we'd worry about was the finance. Currently, the situation is that, the finance is still almost a secondary issue. One of the big issues that franchisors are facing and potential franchisees are facing is that it's very difficult to open a bank account still. So once that gets rectified, it is fairly simple. There are companies that are actively funding at the moment. So Hitachi Capital, as an example, it's not a traditional bank; it's a capital house. So they've been doing some great work. But other than that, I'm fairly certain that in the near future the banks are going to open up again. And let me just tell you, and this is I think quite unique in terms of funding. But when, in the normal circumstances with a bank, what would happen is if you are a franchisor of good standing, right, when it comes to getting finance for a franchisee or a potential franchisee, they look at the franchisor's track record too. So they look at the track record of the whole network. So typically speaking, a decent franchise would be able to get you 70% of the total requirement. And what I mean by that is working capital, etc. As part of a funding package. But you've got a team around you. Again, you've got somebody who's also working with you on the business plan and all the structures, etc. And then you've got the other big advantage that the banks know, and they've got a track record of what that franchise has done in the past. So it's actually a fantastic thing. At the moment, we're busy lobbying a couple of the politicians, and through the Franchise Britain initiative, and we're trying to secure a pot of money from the government, to kind of as a proof of concept to show them how very reliable franchises are when it comes to funding. So yeah, thank you so much for that question. It's absolutely great. Emily from Facebook Messenger. Hi, Sean. I've learned so much about franchising from you. Oh, thank you so much. Do you think the social impact should be something that is built in the core of the company before you franchise it, or can it be established later? I think the answer is both. It's never too late to try and help humans, in my books at least. But the thing is that social impact franchising is something that really is in its absolute infancy. In the UK, there are only a very, very few people that are pushing it. There's a lovely lady called Julie Waits who does a great job at it. Yesterday I was speaking to a absolutely fantastic guy who's been working with the World Bank, Sari Hamway, over in Dubai, and he's been pushing the social impact franchising initiative. But so if you have a franchise, Emily, or you want to talk about it, please honestly contact me. Be more than happy, because I do think that this is one of those things again in the world that it takes a good number of people to start pushing the agenda of social impact franchising in order to get it into the mainstream. So if you are a franchisor, I could do with some more voices pushing it. So thank you so much for the question too. Verinia from Instagram, what are some of the low investment franchise opportunities that we can explore in the current market? Wow, there are literally thousands. So if you're taking a look at the low investment franchise opportunities, the children's sector, you're probably looking at anywhere between sort of 2,000 and maybe 15,000 pounds, depending on the type of franchise that you're after as a low investment franchise. But also just remember, the thing is that your franchise fee, and when I say 2 to 15, you might be thinking, wow, that's quite expensive. In reality, you're going to be paying a lot more than that if you start these businesses yourself. It's just going to take you a much longer time to kind of spend it. So yeah, I would definitely look at the children's industry if you're looking at low investments. There are a number of other types of franchises. I mean, you could be looking at if it's something that's interesting to you. The lawn cutting. There's quite a number of sort of trade-based franchises that are relatively inexpensive. But if you're looking for something that you're working in, where you're the owner operator, you're probably looking at something between £2,000 and about £15,000. There are more expensive variations. So like the company Chips Away that does mobile chip repair, those kind of guys are more expensive. Revive, but there's so many options available to you. If you are looking at a management style franchise, which is becoming increasingly popular here, you probably should be budgeting from £15,000, but the average for a good franchise that you can rely on is probably about £25,000 as the franchise fee. And again, I just want to reiterate, this isn't like a payment that you might think, I'm buying a piece of tech or a car or something like that. In almost all cases, the fundamentals of franchising is that a franchisor does not make a profit from the franchise fee. So what happens is that £25,000 then will go into this big machine to help you launch your business, right? Because a franchisor will make their money over the longer term, from your royalties, etc. And what they should be doing is using that £25,000 and pushing it into equipment for you and marketing for you, and all of those great things. As an example, all the franchises that I work with, at least 50% of that money goes straight into advertising, launch advertising. So it is a fee, but it's I suppose I could say it's a fee, but it is for me, and that's from your perspective. But does go straight back into you. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for the question. Crooner's Love from Facebook Messenger. Hi Sean, what's the most important risk you took in this last year and why? Every day was a risk. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't actually think that every day was a risk. I think the opportunities that we took, we took on a number of international clients, as I said, working everywhere from Germany, South Africa, South America, a lot of clients here in the UK. So I guess, selling, just going out and saying, well, despite the pandemic, we're going to go out and, go and find clients, was probably the thing that was the most risky. Although, to be fair, I think the pandemic takes away that word risk. Everything else is just what you need to do, if I'm completely honest. I hope that answers your question. But I'll have a think about that more. Anyway, thank you. Batista from Instagram DM. Hey, what are the top 3 or 4 questions to ask any franchise owner, which can help me evaluate if I should pursue taking the franchise or not? Right. So my number 1 tip, right, would be to listen to everything that the franchisor says. Once you get their numbers document, you'll be able to really start evaluating the business. But if I was to give you a single bit of advice, right, speak to the support people, right? Speak to the people in the office that are going to be your contacts going forward. Speak to the area managers, speak to the head of support, speak to the marketing company, the marketing person, speak to all of those people, because they're not the salespeople, right? And they're much more inclined, to just be fairly direct with you and tell you what not to do. Because look, at the end of the day, the people who are selling the franchise are very excited about their business, right? And they very much are believers in their business. And I've got to tell you, so I mentor, I've got a mentorship group, the Mastermind, the Franchise Mastermind, and there must be about 360 odd franchise networks in there. On the whole, franchisors are just absolutely genuine, down-to-earth people. They really, really care about their franchisees. But when you're buying a franchise, right, the risk is that their enthusiasm and their belief in their business, right, might whip you up into a bit of excitement, and maybe that business isn't right for you. So what I would definitely suggest is speak to all the people in the back end, right? Speak to the person who's going to be there for you, in year 3. As I said, the area managers, because they see all the mistakes that some of the franchisees make. They see all the things that are working for franchisees, right? And because they're not in that sort of excitement mentality, what they're probably going to give you is a very clear view of the business. Last tip I can probably give you is if you need any advice, I know most franchises out there, I'd be more than happy just to give you some pros and cons of any of the franchises you're looking at. So feel free to contact me. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, and that's probably the best advice I can give you. I've got a question here from Lily from Twitter DM. Congratulations on the new company. Thank you so much. What motivates you and how do you generate new ideas? I've got to say, Lily, they pop in all the time. They're just always there. But no, so, this is a really interesting question. What motivates me? I'm very much a big cause kind of guy. So, most of the businesses that I get involved with or businesses that I consult with or try and help, I always look for a good cause, right? And in terms of helping humans. So, I'm a massive believer in franchising. The reason I'm still in the franchising game is because I've just seen the massive, massive positive impact it can have in local communities and, for families. And, remember when you are supporting, well, let's look at this from the consumer point of view or just a local point of view. A franchisee who establishes themselves, say, for instance, here in Winchester, where I am, right? They are a local person. They're a person who often have used their last savings, or they've used, a significant amount of their money to get into franchising in order to have an opportunity to build a business, right? They go into the local community. They've invested heavily to get all the branding right. They've all the stuff right, so it's all ready for them. It looks good. They've got their business cards, their websites, and all of that kind of stuff. Is all taken care of, and they're surrounded by mentors and coaches. So when they go into a local community, right, what they can do is they can really, really, really focus on the customer services. And some people would say, well, hold on, that means you're a big company and that's not really local, etc., which is absolutely not true, right? Franchisees are genuinely local. And what's amazing about franchising as a business model, especially when it expands, is that the money stays in the local community. So if you compare a franchise to, say, for instance, a business with a big branch network, right? What happens in a branch is all of that money goes somewhere, right? And, potentially not into a British bank account. And it goes out, although, the employees, etc., get paid there, that money gets whipped out of the local community, which is in stark contrast to franchising, right? So the vast majority of that money with a franchise actually stays in the local community, right? And on average, I think franchisees now employ about 13 people. So employment goes up. The money stays in the local community. The kids go to school there. Everything about it is local, except they've just got that ability to be able to provide a service that a national business would be able to offer. So when I go into franchising, when I help somebody into franchising, I genuinely believe that I'm helping somebody to be able to be more successful and, not become a statistic in the small business world. I can look them in the eye and say there's a 93.7% chance that, your business is still going to be around. Where if I was just a coach and a normal, one of the mentors, etc., you could never say that and genuinely believe it because it's just too tough as to launch a small business. But that is my why, I suppose. I'm not one of these guys who can be bribed with $1 million, but if you tell me I'm going to help 1 million people, I'm there, without a question. I think my wife is probably a bit upset with me about that sometimes, but anyway, it just is what it is. Right, we're going over to Johan. Good to see you back on the show, Sean. Seems like you've been busy. How do you balance your work days? I've taken up some different projects and run my own business and haven't found a good structure yet. Just don't sleep. So, you know, I know that a lot of people, you know, nowadays it's very much about, you know, work-life balance, and all of that. But be very structured with your day. Make sure that family time is family time, work time is work time. But honestly, you know, the reality is that if you love what you do, you probably won't sleep all that much. You know, you'll just keep cracking on. I am busy, but I feel like I'm helping, you know. So for me, that's all I need as fuel. But Johan, thanks so much for the question, really. And again, you know, yeah, been busy, but it's been for a good reason, I think. Anyway, right, guys. So let's get up to the poll results. So the poll results are in, and we asked you: have you ever sacrificed anything for your employees? And 50% of you said yes, and 50% of you said no. I would like to speak to the 50% of you that said no, and because I don't know if that's true. I'm fairly certain you probably have sacrificed something for your employees. That's just part and parcel of being a boss, if I'm honest. But anyway, that's absolutely brilliant. Thanks, guys, for taking part in that. It's really you know, much appreciated. And you know, as I said, you know, the whole idea behind franchising is that you are doing something good, even if it's just on a commercial basis. But enough of franchising for now. Hopefully we'll be speaking to you about it soon again. But thank you all for tuning in. If you want to get in contact with me, you can either email me on sean@theopcenter.com or visit my website, the Op Center. As I said, we've just rebranded, so you can also contact me on sean@growglobal. And it's a funny spelling, grow. It's GROE global.com. And you can visit the website too at www.growglobal.com, GROE. Coming up on Ask the Experts on Monday is Judith Dugdale, who is Head of Digital Solutions for MHA Moore and Smalley. Tune in and learn how you can plan for the new financial year and how QuickBooks Online can help. Don't forget to join the official Intuit QuickBooks S&B group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. I've absolutely loved this morning's session. Thank you so much. It's been my great honor to be able to speak to you about franchising and everything that's good in franchising. I wish you a very, very lovely weekend. Please try and switch off and, you know, just start the fight again on Monday morning. So have a lovely day, guys, and thank you. That's all from me.